"This house is mine now," Emily shouted, waving a piece of paper in my face. "Dad promised it to me before he died. Here's the proof." Her smug smile made me angry, but I stayed calm. "My name is Olivia, and I'm 35 years old. I never thought I'd have to fight for my own home, especially against family. This house was a beautiful Victorian-style home where my father-in-law, George, had lived for 40 years. He passed away 3 months ago, and things have been peaceful until today." Emily walked around my living room, running her hands over the furniture I had carefully restored. "You need to pack up and leave by the weekend," she said. "I'm meeting with a realtor on Monday." I almost laughed at how bold she was. This house had been my home for 10 years. My husband James and I had put our hearts into fixing it up, keeping its old charm while making it comfortable. George had lived here with us for the last 5 years, and we had cared for him through his illness. "Emily," I said calmly, "I think you should sit down." She spun around, her fancy purse swinging. "Don't treat me like a child, Olivia. Look." She shoved the paper toward me again. "Dad wrote this before he died. He wanted me to have the house." I looked at the note. It was written in shaky handwriting and only said, "Emily, I want you to have the house." No signature, no details, just those few words. "Where did you find this?" I asked. "In Dad's study last week, when I was helping you clean," she said, making air quotes. In reality, she had come over uninvited and gone through George's things while I was at work. At that moment, James walked in. He stopped when he saw his sister standing there, looking angry. "Emily, what's going on?" "I'm taking what's mine," she said. "Dad left me the house. I have proof." She waved the note at him. James looked at me, confused. I gave him a small nod, and he understood. We had expected this. "Emily," he started, "that's not—" "Don't try to stop me," she snapped. "You always side with Olivia. But this time, I have proof. Dad wanted me to have this house, and I'm selling it." I walked over to an old desk in the corner, one of George's favorite pieces. I pulled out a thick envelope from a hidden compartment. "Funny you mentioned proof," I said. Emily rolled her eyes. "Whatever you have doesn't matter. Dad's words are clear." "Are you sure?" I asked, taking out some documents, "because here is the official property deed. George transferred the house to James and me 5 years ago, when we took out a mortgage to renovate it for his care. We've also been paying the property taxes and insurance since then." Emily's face turned pale, but she quickly recovered. "That doesn't matter. Dad changed his mind. This note proves it." I laid out more papers. "This is a notarized statement from your father, written 3 months before he passed, when he was still thinking clearly. It says he wanted James and me to keep the house as a family home. He knew we were the ones taking care of him." Emily's hands shook. "No, that can't be true. He wouldn't." "There's more," I said quietly. "Here are records of all the work we've done on the house. And here are records showing how many times you refused to help with his care or medical costs." Emily's face turned completely white. She sat down, her dress wrinkling. But the note." James stepped forward, his voice firm but gentle. "Emily, Dad could barely write in his last 2 weeks. He was on strong medication. This note doesn't override the legal documents he signed when he was well." Her lip trembled, but then her eyes hardened. "You manipulated him," she snapped. "You turned him against me while I was working in New York." "No, Emily," I said softly. "We were here. We took him to the doctor. We changed the house for his wheelchair. We played chess with him and listened to his stories. Where were you?" She jumped up, grabbing her purse. "This isn't over," she shouted. "I'll get a lawyer. You'll see." She stormed out, slamming the door. James and I exchanged a look. We both knew she wouldn't give up easily. I carefully put the papers back in the envelope. "Do you think she'll really get a lawyer?" I asked. James sighed. "Probably, but we have everything in order, thanks to you." I nodded, remembering George's warnings. "Your sister might try to take the house," he had told us. "She always feels like she deserves more." That's why he had made sure everything was legally transferred to us. I looked around the living room, the floors we had restored, the old molding, the family pictures on the walls. This wasn't just a house. It was our home, full of love and memories. Emily had a note, but we had something stronger: the truth, the law, and years of care for George. Still, as I watched the sunset through the stained glass windows, I had a feeling this fight wasn't over. Emily didn't waste any time. Within days, letters from her lawyer started arriving, demanding documents and threatening legal action. But what happened next shocked us. One afternoon, I came home from work and found a real estate agent walking through our house, measuring things. Emily stood in the hallway, smiling smugly. "What's going on?" I asked, dropping my bag. "Just getting the house assessed," Emily said sweetly. "My lawyer says we need to know its market value before the case moves forward." The real estate agent looked uneasy. "I didn't know there was a dispute over ownership," she said, glancing between us. "There isn't," I said firmly. "This is private property and you're trespassing. You need to leave." Emily's smile faded. "Don't be difficult, Olivia. This will go smoother if you just cooperate." I pulled out my phone. "You have 2 minutes to leave before I call the police." "How did you even get in?" Emily held up a key, Dad's spare. "Found it in his study when I was helping clean up." The real estate agent quickly packed up her things and hurried out, apologizing. Emily, however, didn't move. "You can't keep denying me what's mine," she said angrily. "I know Dad wanted me to have this house. You and James tricked him when he was weak." Just then, our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Sullivan, appeared in the doorway. "Is everything okay?" she asked. I saw a stranger walking around with a measuring tape and got worried. "Everything's fine," I assured her. "Just a misunderstanding about property access." Mrs. Sullivan looked at Emily and frowned. "Oh, it's you. You know, I was just thinking about your father. Such a shame how little you visited him in his last years." Emily's face turned red. "I was busy with my career. Not everyone has time to play nurse." Mrs. Sullivan's voice turned cold. "No, but most people make time for their dying father. I remember George telling me how grateful he was for Olivia and James. He said they were the only ones who truly cared about him, not just his house." Emily grabbed her purse and stormed out. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer," she yelled as she left. After she was gone, Mrs. Sullivan turned to me. "I have something for you. I've been holding onto it for the right time." She pulled an envelope from her pocket. "George gave me this 2 months before he passed. He told me to give it to you if Emily ever tried to take the house." Inside was a letter, written in George's clear handwriting from before his illness worsened. It detailed how Emily had repeatedly tried to get him to sign the house over to her, how she only visited when she wanted something, and why he made sure the property legally went to James and me. "He knew," Mrs. Sullivan said. "He knew she would try this. That's why he had me witness him signing the house over to you and James. I was there at the lawyer's office." Tears welled up in my eyes. Even after he was gone, George was still protecting us. That evening, when James came home, I showed him the letter. He read it silently, his jaw tightening. "I knew she was selfish," he said finally. "But this trying to sell our house, bringing a real estate agent in while we're still living here, that's a new low, even for her." We called our lawyer and updated him on everything. He was particularly interested in Emily breaking in and trying to get the house appraised. "This actually helps your case," he said. "She's showing a pattern of interfering with your legal rights. If she sues, this will weaken her claim." The next day, we changed the locks and installed security cameras. We also filed a police report, not to press charges, but to document Emily's actions. As we took steps to protect our home, I thought about George. He had spent his last years here, watching the neighborhood kids play from his favorite chair by the window. "Promise me you'll keep it in the family," he had told us one evening, his voice weak, but his mind sharp. "Not just as a property, but as a home." Emily, she'd sell it in a second. She never understood what makes a house special. We had promised, and now we were fighting to keep that promise. This wasn't just about legal rights anymore. It was about honoring George's wishes. That night, as James and I sat on the porch swing George had built years ago, both our phones buzzed with messages from Emily. She demanded a family meeting, claiming she had undeniable proof that the house was hers. "Should we go?" James asked, sounding exhausted. I squeezed his hand. "Yes, let's hear her out. But this time, we'll be ready with proof of our own." We sat in silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in orange and purple, the same view George had loved. Whatever Emily had planned, one thing was certain. This house, with all its memories, was worth fighting for. The family meeting was set for Sunday afternoon at our house. Emily arrived with her lawyer in tow, dressed like she was heading to court rather than a family discussion. I noticed she was clutching a folder, presumably containing her irrefutable evidence. What she didn't expect was to find Mrs. Sullivan and our family lawyer already seated in our living room. "What are they doing here?" Emily demanded, her confident facade cracking slightly. "They're witnesses," I replied calmly. "Mrs. Sullivan to George's wishes, and Mr. Parker to the legal aspects of property ownership." Emily composed herself quickly and sat down, smoothing her skirt. "Fine. Let's get this over with." She opened her folder with flourish. "I have proof that Dad was coerced into transferring the property. Medical records showing he was on heavy medication when you convinced him to sign it over." Her lawyer laid out several documents, including pharmacy records from the last 6 months of George's life. "As you can see," he began, "Mr. Harrison was on strong pain medication that could have impaired his judgment." I couldn't help but smile. Mrs. Sullivan leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. "Those records are from 2023, dear. The property transfer was completed in 2018, 5 years before George became ill." Emily's lawyer frowned, quickly reviewing the dates. Her case was unraveling before it began. But the note," Emily sputtered. "He wrote that he wanted me to have the house." Mr. Parker, our lawyer, cleared his throat. "Yes, about that note. We had it analyzed by a handwriting expert." He produced a report. "The writing shows signs of severe impairment, consistent with someone on heavy medication. Moreover, it's not legally binding and doesn't override the properly executed property transfer from 5 years prior." Emily's face reddened. "This isn't fair. I'm his daughter. I deserve." "What exactly do you deserve, Emily?" James interrupted, his voice uncharacteristically hard. "The house you never helped maintain, the home where others cared for our father while you were too busy to visit." Mrs. Sullivan pulled out George's letter, the one she'd been keeping. "Perhaps we should read what your father really thought." As she read George's words aloud, detailing Emily's neglect and attempts to acquire the house, tears formed in Emily's eyes, not of sadness, but of rage. "You all planned this," she accused. "You turned Dad against me." "No, Emily," I said softly. "You did that yourself. Every time you skipped a holiday, every time you ignored his calls, every time you asked about the property instead of his health." Her lawyer, looking increasingly uncomfortable, gathered his papers. "Miss Harrison, I believe we should discuss our options privately." But Emily wasn't finished. She stood up, pointing at me. "You're not even blood family, you just married in. This house should stay with real family." "Family isn't about blood, Emily," Mrs. Sullivan interjected. "It's about who shows up, who cares, who makes a house a home." George understood that. Emily stormed out, her lawyer trailing behind. The slam of the door echoed through the house. The same sound we'd heard countless times during her teenage tantrums years ago. In the following weeks, we received notice that Emily had dropped her claim to the house. Her lawyer's letter included a formal apology for the unauthorized entry and attempted property assessment. We later heard through family friends that she'd taken a job offer in California, as far from the house and its memories as she could get. James and I spent that summer restoring George's garden, the one he'd tended so carefully. We planted his favorite roses and set up the bird feeders he'd loved to watch. One evening, as we sat on the porch swing, Mrs. Sullivan joined us with a photo album we'd never seen before. "George gave me this too," she said. "Pictures of this house through the years, the children growing up, the family gatherings, the quiet moments. He wanted you to have it, to remember why he chose you to continue its story." As we flipped through the pages, we saw the house through George's eyes, not as property to be claimed, but as a home where life happened, where memories were made, where love grew. The final page held a note in George's handwriting, dated just before the property transfer, to James and Olivia. "You've made this house a home again. Thank you for giving me peace in knowing its future is in the right hands." We still get Christmas cards from Emily, impersonal and signed with just her name. But the house remains what George wanted it to be, a family home, filled with love, laughter, and the kind of care that can't be measured in property values or legal documents. Sometimes, when the evening light hits the stained glass windows just right, I swear I can feel George's presence, smiling at how his final wishes were honored. Not just about the house, but about understanding what really makes a family. And in the end, that's what this fight was really about, not just bricks and mortar, but the heart and soul of a home that was entrusted to those who truly understood its worth.